Can we do something on the intercom so everyone knows to come over?
Yes. So we're about to start our first seminar with LJ. If anybody is here for the seminar, we're about to begin. That's my intercom announcement.
Seminar.
Great intercom.
So thank you all for tuning in online. Thank you guys all for coming out. So we have LJ from Jigs here, as well as, now of course I'm going to draw a blank right now. Travis as well, who's a pro staffer for LJ. They fish together. Many of you guys probably follow these guys online, see all the huge fish they're always catching that we're not. So they're here to tell you how to catch those fish, along with a ton of, really LJ's got a ton of great material today, a bunch of different things, how to target different species.
It's a new year.
Yeah, it is a
get
whole,
on it.
Absolutely.
It's a whole new year, you got to have a new approach this year, and that's what we're going to discuss.
Absolutely. So also real quick on the docket, we also are going to have 2 other seminars today. So we have DNR Eric from DNR coming, and we're going to talk about some of the regulations we have coming up. And then you're actually going to join us again, and hopefully Travis, if you want to stick around, well too. And we're going to kind of have a little discussion on that as well.
Sure.
So the next few hours we'll be here live. So make sure you tune in, and I'm going to hand it off to you, LJ.
All right, thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
And Travis and I would like to thank Anglers for hosting this big event this weekend. I hope everybody got in here, grabbed some of their Z-Man specials. They have 50% off, or basically buy one, get one free. You still grab that today while they last. What we're going to discuss today is it all right if I just go through, skip the introduction with you?
Yeah, cool.
All right, so the way we plan this out is that we're going to talk about the upcoming 2020 season and the outlook and how we're going to approach it. Because there's some stuff going on this year, and we all got to adjust as anglers. We're going to talk about how we approach our fishing trips to go out there and target whatever it is that we're trying to catch. We're going to jump into what we call adequate fishing. You know, what gear do you need? What kind of reels do you need? You know, what kind of line do you need to put on there? And we'll get into little details on that. We're going to talk about rigging of baits and different characteristics of those baits so that you get a full understanding of how to put something on the end of your line and what it's doing out there to help you catch fish and be successful. And then the last thing that we'll discuss is some of a little tips that we use. Maybe we throw out a trick to you. Maybe you've seen us do some of these things, not know why we're doing them, and then you understand it and maybe start putting that in your arsenal to go target your fish. Okay, so with April being closed this year for Rex, well, everybody, isn't it? So April, and it's either going to be July or August, it's going to be shut down for striped bass, which means we've got to target different species. Instead of getting in the same old habit of going after the same old fish, you got to get creative and understand that there's a lot of different species out there. There's croaker, there's white perch. I love to eat spot. We got bluefish. We're not going to have Spanish in April, right? We got a whole bunch of species of fish that we're going to go out there and target. Another thing about the 2020 season you got to remember, we had a dry and a warm winter. The salinity out in the bay right now is about 13 parts, which is really high for this time of year. When I'm bringing our boats in, I've seen a lot of salt on our engine cowlings, and there's salt all over the boat. It's salty out there, which is great for those pelagic fish like the Spanish mackerel and the bluefish. I think that's why they came up better this year. They hadn't been able to come up in years previous. Also, something that you want to do, I was checking out Anglers. Their library matches mine. And Lenny Rudow, he's got a book in here that you got to check out some of these old books. Lenny gives up all. I'm serious. And go check out his Fish Talk magazine page. He gives up all. Was it Walleye and him? They put up the red drum post there. It's like, shh, those are my spots, man. You know what I'm saying? So be sure to grab some of these books. So, were they 10-20% off here today? It's crazy. Alan Batista, you want to know what's on the end of your line and how that lure's working down there? He's an engineer, and he breaks it all down mathematically for you. And I learned a lot reading this book. Check these things out. Go grab them. If you've got them, reread them. This dude here, Wayne Young, they got both of these books here. And they're all about the wrecks that are out here. It's amazing how many wrecks are out there. And in our area, I mean, April or whatever it is, August or July, whatever those months get closed, do what I've done. Go out there with your fish finder and don't cast a line. Go out there and find these things and mark them. And then what you do when you mark these wrecks is next step is you got to figure out how to fish them. Structure's not productive 12 months a year. A lot of these wrecks out there, it's 1 or 2 months, and it's a certain season that those fish are holding there. I've caught grouper on these wrecks out there, black sea bass, beautiful striped bass, but they're not always there. They're not there all the time. So we're gonna have time to figure out some new things here. So revisit a lot of these things that, go ahead and build your library or pull your library out like I will be doing again and revisit these things to help yourself out in the 2020 season. All right, Travis, I need your help. So we do this all the time and we hardly think about it, but when we kick off like a fishing trip, we're gonna go fishing tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
So what are you gonna pull out? What are you gonna think about to start our day?
Well, I'm going to think about what the prevailing patterns have been, looking at reports, prior knowledge of previous years, but I'm also going to use, me and LJ have been using the Navionics app, and we'll look at the depth. So if I'm hearing lots of reports of fish in 40 to 50 feet, I'm hearing reports from buddies, sonar pages, information from previous years. During the season, DNR does a pretty good job of putting out where to catch fish on their fishing report, and if you use that, you can go out and almost pre-fish like a bass angler would and look at marks, look at ledges, look at places that you should try, and then you can go out and target running your boat over areas, and it's not so much an accident if you happen upon fish because you're always motoring through productive water.
Did you talk about the color schemes that you need
Well,
to do with this?
yeah, that's an update where if you do have the Navionics app, but you could use another
15
map.
bucks.
You can adjust the color, so if you know fish are holding in 40 to 50 feet, you can highlight that, and while you're on your way, a lot of times, even with a really nice screen, you may miss areas where there's little drop balls and ledges, and this will kind of make you pay attention or reavert your attention to an area that would be productive. And in the winter, it can be hard, but you definitely can find fish. There's a lot less clues, the metabolism is a little bit slower, they're not as active, you're not going to have bird shows and things like that in the dead of winter, but you will find them hanging out on those ledges, and if you get one to bite, you'll usually get a few.
You can kind of see on my phone, the blue shows up, but the orange doesn't. That's a CR buoy, it's simple stuff. But it helps eliminate a lot of the water to go to. When you're out there trying to figure out if you've already decided north or south, then now you can dial in water depth, okay? Hey, what about oxygen levels in the summer?
Well,
anything good with that, you have to say?
yeah, I mean, that helped out a lot last year too. Eric, who's going to be here later from DNR, they do a really good job of putting out that report. And you can go online, Chesapeake Bay Observational Forecast Systems, you can go to the buoys. It gets a little bit mad scientist, but if you go on and look at areas where the oxygen level is good for the fish, they're going to be there. If you were fishing in the summer last year, 8 to 12 foot of water, that's where the fish were. If you were out in 35 feet, a lot of times it was a ghost town because the fish couldn't live there. If you went to structures that were in that depth, it was pretty much a gold mine for fish. Part of that is, if you think about a bridge piling, if you think about a lighthouse, when that water moves past that piling, it creates oxygen. So it gives those fish not only a structure, but it gives them more oxygen and a bad time of year. So it's no secret if you went to like Love Point Rock Pile, or if you went to lighthouses, if you went to Bay Bridge pilings, there were a lot of fish there. But they weren't just there for the structure. They were there to live, to survive. So
they're most comfortable. They're sitting in the air conditioning there, and it's nice, and they're sitting on their sofa, right? That's where they're going to be. The other thing is that Navionics app will help you find all of that water. And what's interesting to me is that when we do this with our phones, it's like, wow, I didn't even, you don't even see that on your regular fish finder. All of a sudden, all these places jump out at you like, oh yeah, and now I've got 10, 15, 20 places to go check out. So there's other clues that you can get before you start your fishing trip, right? Planning your trip, like you look on social media,
Yeah.
and all everybody wants to post their pictures, right? They post a screenshot of their like depth finder all the time, right? Look at the stacked fish on my fish finder. You'll never know where I'm at, right? What do you get out of that, brother?
I mean, we're really lucky right now with the advancements in sonar, and we have guys like Nick Garrett with the Sonar Pros, and they have the Sonar Inside Imaging page on Facebook. If you haven't checked that out, it's a wealth of knowledge for people just to dial in the fish finders they already have, but also people like to share, and when they share, they may share 40 foot of water, 45 degrees, and they may not be in your area, but that doesn't matter. You look at that temperature, you look at that depth, it's going to give you an idea. If you see 3 people posting that, that's a pattern starting to emerge. So it can give you an idea. If you haven't been out in a week, well, maybe things have changed from the last time I've been out. And you go back to your prior knowledge and say, wait a second, maybe I need to start looking at some of my other haunts for the fish. And a lot of times that can be rewarding. So it's good to be a little sneaky. You don't want to rely on it too much, because a lot of times once you're reading a report, it's yesterday's fish, but you can use your knowledge and piece together patterns and be productive.
So there's other things that you want to think about when approaching your trip. You want to look at your tides. When's the high tide? When's my slack tide? A lot of times, you might as well pull out the sandwiches at slack tide or go find some shark's teeth at slack tide, but plan for that. So sometimes we'll delay our trip, or sometimes we'll bump up the departure because the window opportunity that we have of what's happening. Also, what's underwater structure? Well, obvious things are reefs and shipwrecks and things like that. But if you look at the contours of your map, you're going to notice little points in the water. Like it'll come out and then make an elbow. There's a point in the water. That is underwater structure. Don't ignore that. If it's pointing south and you got an incoming tide, I'm gonna start out on the up side of that tide. They're gonna sit there up on it, facing the tide, waiting for those bait presentations to come in or come across it. So also check your winds, try to get an idea if it's gonna be windy, what direction that wind is gonna come from. If I've got a heavy south wind, I'm probably gonna go on the north side of Poplar, stay out of the wind. It's gonna be nice calm water over there. And I'm gonna focus in on those depths that I'm looking for, and then focus in on the tide there. So plan all those things out with the species of fish that you want to catch. So and I'm not saying it's all stripers in there. There's other fish in there too to go target. Also gives you the options of throwing top water. So that could get you an early morning or a late evening bite, or you could do the jigging, or you can cast a riprap in there. You can use different baits. So let's get into some of those baits now.
Speaking of top water, why would you use that?
Well, I'm gonna save this for last.
Okay.
I'm gonna save this for last. That's a cotton cordell. But okay, fishing rods.
Okay.
All right, so I want to go catch bull drums. I want to go catch a cobia. You're really gonna catch me a cobia. I want to go catch me a black drum. Is there some type of a rod that I should be looking for?
Yeah.
And what kind of line would I put on?
And most of this is just things learned through, ask me how I know type stuff. So don't think we know it all. We've made lots of mistakes, and we're still learning too. Trust me. But one of the biggest problems that I saw with a lot of guys targeting red drum was, we have this light tackle kind of thought all the time, and it really turns into light tackle should be more like the adequate tackle that you would need for a fish. You don't have to go overboard, but if you don't want to be the one telling the story about this is my third red drum and I didn't get it to the boat, if you're actually targeting a red drum, for example, I would have a medium heavy rod. I would have 20 to 30 pound braid, a fluorocarbon leader, a hook that could hold the fish. Otherwise, it's just another sad tale of, the hook bent, my line broke, and I can't tell you how many guys and ladies that I met on the water, and that was the story. And when they finally switched to the right rod, they were successful. The other side of that, it's the right thing to do. You should get that fish in the boat in like 5 to 6 minutes, not 25 minutes. everyone can accidentally hook a fish and it happens, but if it's your third bull red and it's 27 minutes to the boat and it's 90 degrees out, we're tiring these fish out. And the same could be said for rockfish. Most of us in the room know that these reels have 20 pounds of drag, more than you would ever need. And when the boat's not moving, you're going to get them in pretty quick and you're not really stressing the fish out. But light tackle is great, but let's keep it the right tackle for that species.
What size
of
reel
fish.
am I going to put on there, Travis? If I'm using 30-pound test and 60-pound fluoro, what kind of reel am I going to put on that heavy?
For like a drum, obviously you could get them in, and people will tell you I've got them in with 2,500 reels and 3,000 reels. We all know that. But really, if you want to get them in, I personally use a 5,000 reel, mainly for that crank power. I also want to not have to stress out if a lot of line goes out. And at the same time that I'm targeting drum, I'm usually targeting Spanish mackerel. And even though you don't need that size reel for mackerel because they're not really too much of a fight, being able to crank that line in fast is a huge advantage.
Speed on that lure is important.
So a lot of times I'll rig up a rod and reel with a 5,000 and I'll have a rain minnow on and I'll be launching them out. And as soon as I see a sign of a drum, cutting that off, and I'm going to something like one of these paddle tails or Streak XLs with these bigger hooks, heavier weights. Because the reason why is the drum's gonna hit a sting silver too, but so's everything else. The blues, the little rockfish, the mackerel. This is gonna give you a better chance of just getting that drum because other things won't be able to hook up to it. Also, I would probably be using the Z-Man, not because the other baits won't catch, but just because they won't get chopped. I don't chopped in half on a bluefish. Your bait's down there. He hooks up to a drum. I don't. I reel mine in, and it's a chopped off bait. I'm gonna be kind of sad after the school goes by. So it's just things you can do.
The other thing about the bulls, since we're talking about the bulls right now, is that make sure that you use a heavy enough rig to bring them in as fast as he did mention, because those fish move. Like, they'll get startled and they'll take off, and if your buddy's sitting there for 30 minutes bringing it in on 2500 series reel, you're going to lose that school, and you're probably going to spend the next 2 hours trying to find them again. So you want to get them to the boat. You want to do the right thing for the fish by getting them into the boat, not stressing them out. And you can also stay on the school longer, so that's important. When you're looking at the Spanish mackerel, the medium heavies, nice and stiff for you, try to get it in a 6'8" to 7'2" length. And the purpose for the Spanish and the blues gives you that casting distance to get you that extra 25, 50 feet to get that lure to them when they're boat shy. Those fish get boat shy after a while. They figure out what's going on. All these boats are showing up. Fish know three things. They know what boats are, they know what nets are, and they know what hooks are. And they know they don't like any of them things, okay? So having that rod that's adequate enough to get you the distance on that cast for you is going to make you more successful fishing.
And if I could add, it's a little overkill, but I'm probably putting a 50 to 60 pound fluorocarbon leader. For the abrasion, there's all kinds of blues, mackerel, and drum rubbing on that line. And I don't really mind the overkill in that situation. They last longer to nicks and cuts, so it's definitely helpful.
Anglers has I think it's called Blue Label Seagar. They sell it here, and it's their version of the most abrasion resistant fluorocarbon that you can get. It's going to hold up as best as you're going to get when you get into the bluefish and the Spanish and the toothy critters and stuff to help you from getting bit off. So let's talk a little bit about paddle tails. I think we started a commotion with these paddle tails, and I found a lot of folks were interested in these yesterday when I was talking to them, because first I want to just show you basically how to rig one. All right, so you're going to take this is a 7-inch. This is a 7-inch diesel minnow. Is it showing up on that white background?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can see it.
A little bit? Okay. So I'm going to rig this one up for me to go fishing tomorrow morning in open water, 50 to 60 feet of water. The fish are deep, and I know I got to get my lure close to the bottom. And see, I put it through the belly, not the back. It's through the belly. Okay? No,
It's upside down.
yeah. Hey, it's upside down. No, it's not, and I'll explain why. So what I'll do with your Z-Man, this is a Lazitech, it's not plastisol. You're not gonna hurt it. And I'll take this thing here. Can you give me the glue, brother?
Yeah.
Just a bottle, don't have to be open. And I'll expose these keeper times with my fingers like that. And then while they're exposed, I'll just simply come in here. I'm not sure if I can see that. I come in here, put a little dabble on these keeper tines here, and I'll come over here and do the same thing on the other side. Just get it moist, and then pull it down and shape your bait. Just shape it up. Okay, so now I got a nice profile, the mating surface of our GI jig, and I'll take the glue and I'll put a little touch in here. And I'll come to the other side and I'll put a little touch up here to help it snug up to that mating surface. Multiple fishing trips with this lure. All right, now let me explain why this is not upside down. Why wouldn't a bait be upside down trying to regain its senses? Because striped bass are aggressive. They're predators. They're going to go through schools of bait with their tail and they're going to whack them. And those bait are going to get all disoriented, they're going to get stunned, and they're going to fall to the bottom. That's where they're used to picking them up. What's the fish doing when it's not dead on the bottom? He's trying to get right side up, right? He's not upside down. That's what the fish is looking for. That's what he's eating this entire time. The other thing is, I'm fishing this time of year, and I'm fishing deep water like this, and the fish are low. I'm not going to give it, you're not going to hear the crack of my whip. You're going to see an action on my rod that looks like this. You would think I'm bottom fishing for, spot, and I'm just lifting up my sinker and dropping it back down. The beauty about these paddle tails, there's a lot of Lazitech. This stuff acts like a bobber underwater, doesn't it, Travis?
Yeah, you can use it like a jerk head.
It sits like this. Your bait sits on the bottom when you're not doing anything. And while your boat's drifting, it's dragging along the bottom, and your bait still looks like that. There's plenty of fish there for that thing to grab. It's not laying there like this. It doesn't sink, okay? It sits like this.
And backtracking to your glue, this is gel. If you're not already using gel, you should use it for all your soft plastics. All of them, they're gonna last longer. But the Loctite, for whatever reason, it doesn't react to the Lazitech. And if you use Z-Man before with different glue, it'll kind of get crusty all around here and kind of start to dry out. This won't do it, so just throwing that out there for you.
Okay, so Travis, why don't you tell a story about Captain Nick and the paddle tails, and I'll rig this one up like a paddle tail that everybody's used to seeing.
Well, Captain Nick's like my son, so it was 2 years ago in the Kent Narrows light tackle tournament, and he was about 10 years old at the time, maybe 9. And it was a kind of a slack tide bite. We were in Eastern Bay, not a lot of water movement, and we had him drop a paddle tail down just like this one, but white. And I would tell him to drop it to the bottom and just slowly reel it up. And within like 30 minutes, he had like a 90-inch stringer, and out caught 2 of the anglers on the boat that were great anglers. Fisherman. And it was frustrating for everybody, including me, to watch. And it wasn't that he was the world's greatest angler or anything. It was he slowed his presentation down. We were sitting there going like this and trying to get fish to bite that were just slower. And this would just sit on the bottom, and he'd just bring it up, and just that slow motion. That's what the fish wanted.
The design of the GI jig allows the head to wobble. So when this paddle is back here paddling, the GI jig is going through the water like this. So it doesn't really take a lot of action. Back to the jigging piece, when you have a paddle tail down here and you lift the rod up, the paddle tail vibrates, and it vibrates on the way down. Even when it's setting still, it's still sitting here vibrating as you're dragging it along in the silt. Another nice thing about it is when you're making contact with the bottom and you're moving along, and especially when you got a couple of rods out there and you're all doing the same thing in the same depth, you're creating a scent down there in the water, okay? It's a silt trail. Those fish that might be crossing paths of that, like, hey, what's going on up here? There's some commotion going up here. I smell it. And they start to investigate it. Do you ever dunk your bait without sending it first?
No, definitely. I like the Procure, but I would definitely be using a bait. And there are a few times where I will rig it the other way to swim it if I'm casting the fish that are up high. I don't think they would frown upon it that way, but it just depends on my presentation. So they definitely can work both ways.
Okay. Right. Absolutely.
If they, if they're on Menhaden or up high in the water column, I might want to swim it back fast.
Does everybody use this? Has anybody used it? Okay.
Should be the one thing you buy today.
It's like
though.
axle grease. I swear it doesn't come off. This isn't oil that you find on your gulp baits. That when you drop it in the water, now you got an oil slick up on the surface. You wonder if there's anything that smells on your bait anymore.
What scent do you like best?
Great question. It depends on the season. Like right now, herring, menhaden. We're gonna move into July. I'm gonna bounce into eel because we have a nice eel run in this area in July. And then when the crabs start shedding, I'm going to shredder crab or any kind of a crab scent. It depends on what they're feeding on. Don't be afraid of those kind of things. And then if you're going out, I've gone out with the bust 'em stingers and put shrimp and bloodworm scent on my fish and caught spot without bait. Catching them on those stingers out there. You want to talk about cheap? It'll like $11 a dozen for bloodworms. I got a great alternative here for you. Okay, try it out. This stuff really works. Rockfish Superpower. They got taste buds on the outside of their mouths. They got hair in their nostrils. They have a great sense of taste and smell as their superpower. So definitely go for it. And it catches all species of fish. Can't say enough about
So if we have this on the boat, one person will start using this if they haven't used it before, and it's not very long that people are like, "Where's that bottle?" And they're putting it on everything. So it definitely works. Another nice thing about having the scent is if you get that short strike or you get that fish, they get this in their mouth and they're just tasting plastic. They're going to reject it. If you have this scent, it's going to give you a little extra time to set that hook on that fish.
Yeah.
Also, if 4 of us are on the boat and we all have baits with scent in the water, we're kind of creating a little bit of commotion for those fish to hang around longer or to strike. So it's definitely something to add to your arsenal for sure.
Okay, so because we talked about the winter pattern this year, I think I'm expecting to have a good trout season, sea trout season this week, and I think that we held a lot of those fish in the bay this year, and I think we're going to have a good run of these things coming up from the south also. I don't think we had any big hill for those. We're kind of running on short of time, so we're going to skip into that just quickly here. It's really cool. I bought these online the other day, and I come into Anglers. They have these colors and exactly what I was looking to get for the trout, because I'm expecting a nice trout bite this year. And believe me, when they close those striped bass come July or August, I'm going to focus on those pelagic and the sea trout. I'm going to get into the shallow waters, and I'm going to start throwing these Rapalas.
You're going for the gators.
Yeah. I want the big boys, but these are on the big side. I don't mind that personally, but the key to these things is they have inline hooks. I don't like trebles. They're nothing but trouble. They're going to get you in trouble. And I also take that back inline hook off of these things. You don't need it. They're going to hit it in the head. If you're really worried about those trout, and I don't know, just take the trebles off. You don't need that stinger hook. The back hook, it's always the back hook. I don't know what it is. I've gotten hooked. I've taken hooks out enough people. And it doesn't matter if it's not a treble and it's inline, it still finds you because somehow you're handling that fish, it slips, something goes on, and it's got you. The back hook is always the one that gets us, So just look at those. And another thing I did was I went out and I bought some of the thin wire VMC hooks in different sizes, some of the smaller sizes. I do have some smaller versions of these baits that I need to swap out. I think the inline hooks I have on there are just a little big, but it's always good. I think these are 1/0 and what's this other 2/0, and it's the thin wire, not the real XXX heavy ones. Okay, so we jumped into that. So what we're going to do is we're going to cover a couple of. Do you have a secret? I'm popping a sign you quick. You know mine.
I'll let you.
All right.
One nice thing too about these end lines are it's really nice. It's friendly for the fish, but it's also, you know, if you have kids on the boat or friends you really like, you know, it's nice to not, you know, hook them with the treble hook, you know, so.
Same thing, the ripstops here are fantastic baits. I bought these from anglers. They came with, yeah, they came with trebles, but you see I put the inline hooks on here. I think these are a little too big. I'm gonna go smaller next time. They still catch, but just saying. All right, so, all right, here's one thing. If you walk out of here today and you gain one piece of knowledge from me that I don't share with many people, only people that are in my boat know that I do this. Okay, we're coming up on May and June, and most of the fish are going to be in open water. Then they kind of hold a structure in 30 feet. They're over it. They're chasing bait. They're post-spawn fish. Or you got the mayworm bite going on. Everybody hates the mayworm bite, but I love it because it don't bother me a bit. I'll give you, if you don't have another secret, I'll give you a second secret. But what happens is you're out there and you got 3 of your buddies in the boat. They're all jigging, got different colors, different depths and everything. And I've got this Cordell pencil popper, and I don't even care if it has a hook in it. But what I'm doing is I'm walking around my boat 360 degrees for 20 minutes. And I'm creating this big commotion all around my boat. This thing's cast a mile. And I'm out there casting them not to expect a strike. And believe me, I've caught fish doing this too. It's crazy. They're not even supposed to be hitting top water, but they will. But I'm creating this big commotion all around the boat because I'm getting all those striped bass. They're all spread out. They're not in big schools. They're all like 1s and 2s and 3s, all hanging out, all spread out. Because you got all these John Deere tractors out there with 30 rods out and planer boards, and they're plowing everything up and stirring everything up, and they scattered everything all over the place. And I'm trying to bring it to a boat that's being stealth with these cottontail poppers. They work. It works. Don't be afraid to cast top water to create the commotion and bring the fish into your boat. It works. It works. It works. It works all the time. I do it with my charters, and I do it with my buddies when we're in the water.
So
Without telling nobody.
So my secret, besides fishing with LJ, is basically I found that if you have a charter boat around you or a large boat, and they have their trolling spread out, and they're getting ready to make a slow pass by your boat, that's not a bad thing. When they pass, so if I'm the charter boat passing by my hand, passing by LJ, they're going to push those fish over to you. And I can't tell you how many times I've cast it out and just waited for that to happen.
They're right behind their rigs, man, right behind the planer boards. Ooh!
Work together, instead of, work together out there.
Don't be cussing them out. Don't be mad at them. In fact, like, my buddies there out there, they're charter captains, they know that I like them to do that. They do it to help me out. I appreciate that.
One of our best days on the bay with Spanish mackerel was we had Captain Sam and his dad, Catherine 1 and 2, and they get on the radio and like, how do y'all like to be circled? And they're like,
it was awesome.
They were both doing a very courteous circle, like most charter captains will do to catch the fish, and we're sitting in the middle with these corralled fish, like awesome, like all
we're just
day.
having a blast.
So everybody
we're
was
loving
catching,
life,
so it was nice.
So, one last secret. Because we were jumping into that mayworm bite, okay? When you find those plumes of mayworms, you find stuff in your fish finder, you know that in May, June, whenever the blooms come out, that those aren't fish, but that is something down there. It's probably the mayworm. Mark it on your fish finder. And here's why. Those mayworms, one time a year, come out of the silt and the mud of the bay to spawn. And they get in these big plumes. And what they're doing is they're spawning. And everybody goes, oh, the rockfish bite is terrible because all they do is gorge themselves on those mayworms. Well, that's cool. They do it. But they have to eat a fish to keep them all down, or they just puke them up. It's too much protein for them. So what happens is that those worms come up, they spawn, some of them die, and a lot of them go back down in the mud. Guess what they do next year? They come back up in the same area. So mark those fields where you're finding. They can be in Goose's Creek, spawning. They do spawn at the marinas and stuff at night and things. And they spawn a lot of times in the 50 to 30 foot marks out in the bay. in just your big wide open areas. When you find those plumes, they're all over. Those plumes are marked all over my fish finder. So when you find those things that season's coming up, mark those areas, because that's going to help you be successful when you come back maybe next week or something, but definitely next year when you go out and you get a whole bunch of those in your fish finder.
I would like to take a quick second and talk about like rockfish rods that I really like to use. We talked a lot about the drum rods, but this is a JLS rod. They carry some at the store, but this is a high modulus rod. It's a St. Croix, SC5 blank, and the reason it's 6'3", it has a nice backbone, high quality components, and the reason I like it is if you have the rod in your hand all day, it's very light, but I could use this rod pretty much for perch, rockfish, trout. I really don't want to hook drum with it. I would try not to for reasons we talked about earlier, but the sensitivity on these rods is outstanding, and I can't tell you how many times I've literally sold this rod on the boat because there's a hard bite and I'm catching the fish, and I assure you it's not my expert angling abilities, and other people next to me are like, let me borrow that rod, and they're like, oh my gosh. And if you only have a few days on the water, like most of us, I really want to have everything at my advantage. I don't want to find out that I missed, a fish of the lifetime because I never felt it. So, if you're going to invest in something and you're going to get into the light tackle fishing, having a high quality rod of any brand, I like this one, a nice reel, the right line, is really going to improve your fishing. It's really hard to do without.
It really is frustrating fishing next to him, because I swear to God. And if he's not catching, guess what? It's time to go find me another spot in about 20 minutes. We hit right at the 40-foot mark. I'd like to say one last thing to everybody that I say at all my presentations. Sitting next to you in this room today is going to be somebody that's going to be in his boat next to you this year out on the water. Introduce yourself and work with each other while you're out on the water to help catch more fish together. And just kind of make a little scenario. Try not to be the guy that runs on plane, full blast, up in the middle of the school, breaking fish, kill the engine. Go on the outside, go at trolling speed, and push those fish to the guy that already found those fish. And what's going to happen is you're going to end up behind that school, and he's going to move, and he's going to push those fish up to you the next time. So you can work with each other out there. Try not to claim everything. We're all in this together, and work with each other out on the water. I've seen it happen with me a lot more as the years have been going on, and it's really getting much friendlier out there. We'd just like to continue that trend that we're making out on the water. And thank you guys very much for coming. If you've got any questions at all, please come up here and ask us. We'll be more than happy to share with you. Thank you.
Thank you.